In this video, we'll look at some other issues we might run into when working with floating point numbers in Python. So now we've seen some reasons to be cautious when using floats in our programs. Let's look at some other places where we might not want to use floating point numbers. You may have noticed that when we use indexes with lists or strings, we use ints and not floats. For example, I can index into this list using the int 1. But if I try to index into this list using 1.0, which represents the same value, I get an error. That error explicitly says that list indexes must be integers, not floats. But are there other places where Python will let us use a float, but we shouldn't? Let's consider an example using a while loop. I'm going to write a while loop with a counter that starts at 0, and I'm going to loop while my counter is less than 1.0. For each iteration of the loop, I'll print a message and update the counter by 0.1. Logically, you would think that this loop will run 10 times because we have to add 0.1 to 0 10 times to reach 1. Let's see what actually happens. If we count the lines printed here, there's actually one more than we expect. There are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11 lines printed. What's going on here? I'm going to update this loop, and this time I'm going to print out the counter instead of hello. So we can see here we have some imprecision. We see this for a few values in the loop, but in particular that our counter becomes very, very close to 1, but not actually 1. So we would expect that this last line was not printed because we consider this value to be the same as 1. However, this would still evaluate to false because it is not exactly 1. So what can we learn from this example? First, we can learn that we should use ints instead of floats wherever possible. Second, we should be recognizing that when we compare floats, looking for two values to be exactly equal is not always going to work as expected.